Guys, right now, the biggest fight in MMA is Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev, and it needs to happen soon. And straight away, I know people are going to be straight on to me saying, oh, Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall is bigger. And you know what? That's fair to say. I think Jon Jones versus Aspinall may definitely be bigger, but for me, I think Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev is simply much bigger, and I am a lot more interested in that fight. Now just hear me out. Aspinall Jones, I feel like that could do crazy numbers. I also think Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria does crazy numbers as well, simply because Islam Makhachev has a massive fan base, as well as Ilia Topuria. He has a growing massive fan base, and I feel like if he didn't have to knock out back-to-back fan favorites and Max Holloway and Volkanovski, he would be even bigger. He had to play like the villain role, but I feel like now people are going to really warm towards Ilia Topuria, now that he's not really going to get matched up against any fan favorites unless the Vault rematch happens, which we'll go into. But yeah, I feel like the biggest fight in MMA is Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev. Tom Aspinall in his prime against an old Jon Jones. Yes, it's still very interesting. I'm still very interested. You're still very interested. And it's still a massive fight. But I just think a prime Ilia Topuria versus a prime Islam Makhachev is much bigger personally. You may agree, you may disagree, but let's be honest, those two fights are the biggest fights in MMA regardless. So it doesn't matter which one's first or second. They're both gigantic fights. But my main point of this video, I just need to see, I don't want to see this fight. We need to see this fight. It needs to happen. Let me go over a few things as to why. To start things off, the entertainment side of things, you got to think the build to this fight, I think, will be absolutely unreal. Ilia Topuria, whenever he goes into a fight, is always talking. He oozes confidence. People call him very cocky and whatnot, but is he cocky? I don't think so. I just think he's very aware of how good he is. And the same goes for Islam Makhachev. He's not exactly the same as Ilia Topuria, but he has a lot of confidence, and he also is very vocal of how good he thinks he is. And I just feel like that would just be such a good build-up between each other. I think the trash talk would be amazing, and then the fight itself, just come on. Is there any way a fight between Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev could be boring? I don't think so. Ilia Topuria is always in banger fights, and Islam Makhachev, for the past, in his entire championship reign, has been banger after banger after banger. Let's be completely honest. I know there used to be this thing around Islam Makhachev where he's a boring fighter, but since he's been champion, the guy's been super fun to watch. Even before he was champion, he was finishing plenty of guys and doing what he was meant to do. And I just feel like this fight will be an absolute banger. I feel like there's so many different possibilities of what could happen, which make things 10 times more exciting. I feel like there's an opportunity for just a war for 5 rounds and it goes a distance. I feel like there's a knockout for either man. I feel like Islam's capable of knocking out Ilia Topuria. I feel like Ilia Topuria is capable of knocking out Islam Makhachev. I feel like Islam Makhachev is capable of submitting Ilia Topuria, and I feel like maybe Ilia Topuria is capable of submitting Islam Makhachev. Maybe I'm not 100% on that one, but you get my drift. There's so many possibilities of what could happen in this fight, which just makes it even more interesting and entertaining. And then just the styles clash, this plays into it all, but the styles clash, I just think, it's just magnificent. You know, Ilia Topuria, someone who his bread and butter is grappling, but he's just adapted really good boxing in his MMA career, can knock your lights out, very precise, throws combinations to the head and to the body. And you got Islam Makhachev as well, who's also very well-rounded. His kickboxing has become really good. You know, we used to all slate it, but his striking really is on point. He's very sharp, and he's very careful with what he does. He's not making silly errors or anything like that. When you saw him got knocked out by, is it Adriano Martins? He was being reckless. He doesn't do that anymore. He's very cautious and safe, but at the same time, it doesn't make him hesitant, and he's not like he's not gun shy or anything like that. And he also mixes it all in. Both of these guys are very well balanced. I can not think of any way how this fight wouldn't deliver. You also have the fact that both of these guys are currently in their prime. God knows, maybe they're not even in their primes yet. I would say that Islam Makhachev is in his prime. Ilia Topuria might be just before his prime. He's still like, what? I think he's only just turned 28 the other day. You know, he's got plenty of time, and you know, he's not really taken any damage And apart from the Jai Herbert fight, I can't think of any damage he's really taken whatsoever. Islam Makhachev hasn't really taken much damage other than the loss to Adriano Martins and some to Volk and a bit to Poirier as well. But, you know, nothing really crazy or significant in my opinion. Both of these guys are in their prime in my opinion, or just circling around that sort of time frame. So it's not like, again, with Aspinall Jones, Aspinall's clearly in his prime, maybe not even in his prime yet, and Jones is obviously way past his best. Still very good, obviously, and still a threat to Tom Aspinall, but I think it is safe to say it's not like a young up-and-coming Jones, or, you know, someone when Jones was demolishing people with ease. It's not that sort of Jones anymore. Whereas this fight, there won't really be any speculation of that. Both of these guys are really on top form right now. Next up, we have the fact that Islam Makhachev, who can he really fight next when you think about it? I mean, he's beat Arman Sarukian. I know it, obviously what went on, but will Arman Sarukian get an immediate thingy? No, he won't. Dana White's came out and said no. And Arman's like, okay, well, we'll do a title eliminated with Charles Oliveira, 5 rounds. That makes sense. That more than likely will happen. Whoever wins that, I mean, he already has a win over them. And I think he beats both Charles and Arman Sarukian. I'm a big Charles fan, but I'm going to be honest, I think he beats Charles in a rematch. Who else is there? I mean, maybe if Justin Gaethje can beat Dan Hooker. If Dan Hooker wins that one, though, he's already beat Dan Hooker. He's beat Dustin Poirier. He's just beat Moicano. There's no one really in the top of the lightweight division who really is, you know, a threat to him and a fresh opponent. There's nothing really to do right now for Islam Makhachev at 155 until you've got Arman and Charles Oliveira the rematch done. So why not let Ilia Topuria? Now, it is a bit different for Ilia Topuria because there is a few people at 145 you could face. I do think it is a bit different though, because the people who he could face, I feel like Ilia definitely beats. But still, you can't really say that. The fight would have to happen because anything can happen in MMA, you know what I mean? So, but I just feel like with Ilia Topuria, because he is this big star, which feel like he could really be the face of MMA if they do it properly. Well, if you scrap this idea of him taking on Volk in a rematch, because let's be honest, who really wants to see the rematch between him and Volkanovski? I love Volk, but it's just hard to get hyped for that fight, knowing how the first one went, and knowing that the second fight likely doesn't go any different, in my opinion. Yes, potentially it could. Volk is great, but I personally just don't see it happening. I would rather see this fight, especially knowing that Islam's not staying at 155. He's been very vocal. He wants to go up to 170. And Ilia's been very vocal of going up to 155. I don't want to miss the boat. And, you know, Ilia beats Volkanovski, but then Islam's like, you know what, I can't even be arsed with 155. I'm going up to 170. And then we never get this fight. It'll be such a massive travesty if we don't get to witness this fight when both fighters are in their prime and are both able to make the weight at 155 healthily. I don't want to wear Islam Makhachev in like 3 or 4 years' time. He's a bit older and he's like, maybe he comes back down to 155, but it's not, you know, he's been doing 170 and he's not cut the weight as best or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want that to be the case. I feel like the perfect timing is now whilst Islam Makhachev hasn't really got a solid contender. And I feel like, well, Diego Lopez is fighting Yair Rodriguez and Movsar Evloev. You could give him a title shot, but I don't know. I don't know what they're doing in the featherweight division. It's kind of up in the air right now what's going on. But right now, we need to see Ilia versus Islam. It has to happen. But I'm going to be honest, guys. As much as I love to say we need this fight and I really want to see it, I just have big doubts that we won't get this fight. I mean, I understand where Islam Makhachev is coming from because no matter what the guy does, people just love to hate him. You know, Volk, oh, well, he's 145. Volk again, well, he's 145. And he was coming off short notice. Moicano, well, yeah, 24 hours is Moicano. What do you expect? You know, there's always something going. Oh, 5 rounds against Dustin Poirier. It's like there's always something. Like, the Islam Makhachev haters will always come at Islam Makhachev for no matter what. So if he was able to beat Ilia Topuria, especially if he was able to finish him in like a round or two, again, people would just be like, well, he's just beat a 145 there. However, for Ilia Topuria, if he beats Islam Makhachev, well, when everyone's singing his praises and like, oh, you just beat Islam Makhachev, you've beat Volk, you've beat Max, you beat Islam Makhachev. That is a GOAT resume right there. That's another reason why I want it. That is perfection right there. That is, you know, another pound for pound fight, really. You know, that is great to have. And if Islam Makhachev, I know people put an asterisk on it, But let's be honest, Ilia's fought at 155 before. I know it was against Jai Herbert, and I know it was the infamous, you know, head kick where he got dropped. But regardless, he still won. I can't remember if that fight was on short notice as well. Someone clue me in on that. I could be wrong. I don't know if it was short notice or not. But regardless, Ilia's only fight at 155, at least in the UFC. So we've seen him there before. We've seen that he can do it. We've also seen that he can be hurt at 155, which again, people use against him. But I just think it makes it even more interesting because we're creating more arguments to why someone will win. It's not just he's flat out going to demolish him like you would say for like Ilia Topuria and Volkan rematch. You know what I mean? Everyone kind of, again, knows that Ilia's going to win that. It's kind of different with all the things going in to Ilia and Islam Makhachev fights. And the 50-50 fights, what are super interesting, have so many points you can make, are always the best fights, especially when it's guaranteed to be an entertaining fight. But yeah, that's it from me, guys. I'll stop me waffling. What do you guys think? How bad do you want to see this fight? Do you also believe the same as me and think that this fight is the biggest fight in MMA that can possibly be made? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.